We are going to take these snack boxes and we're going to turn them into breakfast boxes for an entire week of breakfast for my kids. And you're only going to cook one thing. Let's go. First things first, we are going to start with our pancake mini muffins. Now, this is a staple recipe that I use pretty much every week on a weekly basis because it's so easy. It's easy to make. The kids love them. And it's so easy to switch them up to make different flavors and add different inclusions and things like that. So the recipe itself is really easy. You're like me, my mom brain only functioned like a fraction of the time. So I love the fact that the measurements are really easy. Everything is essentially 1, 1, 1, 1. Let's pick it apart. So using an all-purpose flour, it's just going to be 1 cup of whole-purpose flour. I personally use a high-protein kamut flour. And so if you're using a high-protein flour, then you can use 3/4 of a cup. But for all-purpose, it's going to be a cup. Rest of the ingredients are really simple, and most of this you probably already have on hand. In my family, we are egg and dairy free, so I'm going to be using plant-based milk, and I'm going to be using an egg substitute. If you have to use an egg substitute ever, like for baking, this Boss Red Mill egg replacer is the best that I've found. That for a lot. All right, so basically the measurements break down like this: 1 cup of flour, you're going to use a tablespoon of baking powder. And I'm going to use a tablespoon of the egg replacer, but you can use 1 in replace it. Again, this recipe is so simple. Today, we're going to be using the base of this recipe to make apple streusel and blueberry streusel mini muffin. But I've also used it just making plain blueberry mini muffin or chocolate chip banana. I've added in an entire mashed banana and chocolate chips as well. And it's worked out. It's turned out beautifully every single time. A tablespoon of, I'm using coconut sugar. You can use regular sugar, brown sugar. And then I'm going to use about a tablespoon of oil. I'm a little heavy-handed with it. And then I'm going to use 1 scoop, my last dry ingredient. I'm going to use 1 scoop of collagen. This is optional, but if you have it on hand, it's not going to replace like the meat or your regular protein. There's just not going to be enough between all of the mini muffins, but it does end up adding for like 2 mini muffins. It ends up being about 5 or 6 grams of protein for both of the little mini muffins. And so that's not bad, especially if your kid is going to eat like 3 of them, which would be the size of a regular large muffin. Then the total ends up being closer to about 7 grams of protein. And so if you're trying to get a little bit of extra, squeeze a little bit of extra protein in for your kids, then we're going to make use of this today. And I use it quite a bit in all of my breakfasts. Okay, so I'm going to do a little pinch of salt and a brick, tablespoon of oil. I used to want in a bakery, and they didn't let me bake too much because I didn't measure it. But with an eyeballing them. So again, a little bit of a heavy pour on it. And then it's about a cup of milk. I would start with 3/4 of a cup if you're using regular milk, especially, but sometimes I just have to eyeball it. And I also use this high protein flour. And I feel like between the high protein flour and the plant-based milk, I feel like sometimes it just turns out to be a little bit thicker, or the consistency is just a little bit different. So you just want to add until it's about a pancake batter consistency. And I think you use about 3/4 of a cup of milk here. And then once you get it here, we're going to make our streusel topping. And I'm just going to go ahead and warn you, when you make your streusel topping, if you try it, you will not be able to stop eating it even before it's cooked. It's that good. Okay, so for your streusel topping, you're going to need cinnamon, coconut sugar. You could probably use brown sugar. And then I'm going to use collagen and salt, and then some coconut oil. Okay. So for this, you're going to want a quart of oats. You're going to want 2 tablespoons of flour. So we're going to put a little bit of flour in here. And this streusel, if you want to make a little bit extra, you could take some of this and just cook it up on a baking sheet and then break it apart and put it as a yogurt topping in some of your boxes. You're going to put about 2.5 tablespoons of coconut sugar, another scoop of collagen, I'm going to mix this up, and then I'm going to put about 3 tablespoons of coconut oil in here and about a quarter teaspoon salt. Now I'm going to try this after I do it. In fact, we're probably going to put closer to about a third of a teaspoon of salt. I like mine to be a little salty because since we're not using butter, we're using the coconut oil. It's going to have that nice coconut flavor, which is really great, but it's not going to have that sort of buttery saltiness. And so being pretty generous with the salts really makes this cool. Okay, so put about 3 tablespoons in, and then I'm just going to sort of rough mix it. And then I'm going to fingers and kind of crumble it. A fork works really nicely for this too, but sometimes it's just easier to get in with your fingers and get it to the right texture. All right, I just gave it a little taste, and I'm going to add in a little bit more salt. So far we're at about half a teaspoon, and I think that was going to be plenty. And then I realized that I forgot to put in the cinnamon, which is super important. So we're going to add that cinnamon in. I put in about a teaspoon of cinnamon, a third of this tablespoon right here. So I'm going to quickly wash up my blueberries, and I pre-topped some apples last night when I was doing some other meal prep and stuck them in the fridge. And then we're going to assemble these muffins and get them in the oven. So these are going to be super easy to assemble. Just get a little scoop, add in a little bit of muffin batter. And this recipe makes about 15 if it has inclusion, and about 12 if you're not adding anything to it. So if you're just doing like plain pancake mini muffins, you're probably going to get about 12 muffins out of it. But I'm guesstimating that I'm probably going to get 15 or 16 with putting the apples and the blueberry and the crumble on top. So we're going to leave a little bit of room for that. You can see the batter itself, that baking soda has gone to work and it's already rising up really nicely. And I will say this recipe, I've not ever tried it with full-size muffins. I've only done it with mini muffins. So if you try this with full-size muffins, let me know how it goes, but I can't guarantee that you're going to get the same kind of results. But I put the recipe down in the description because I know some of the substitutions that I have to use might be a little bit different. So we got 14 out of them. So I'm going to do half of them apple, and I've just diced up some apple pretty small there, as you can see. And I'm just going to put a few pieces on top. I've found that this is the easiest way to do it. You can mix it into the batter, and it turns out really nice if you mix it into the batter, if you're doing everything the same, like if you're all going to just do one type of muffin. But my kids like to mix it up. They like to have a little bit of choice. And it's an easy way. I found this to be an easy way to add variety. It's just inclusions in on top with these versus mixing it in. And then that way I don't have to dirty up 2 bowls too by splitting the batter up. Okay, so I've got 2, 4, 6, 7. So I'm going to do blueberries. These, I've done these with sprinkles, chocolate chips. Like I said earlier, I did smashed up a banana and put it into the batter, and then also mixed in chocolate chips, and it turned out perfect. I just did those last week. I've also done this with strawberry and streusel, or just putting strawberries on top. One of their favorites is actually just putting a single banana slice in the middle and then topping it with cinnamon and sugar. They really like those, and they're super easy. And it looks like I'm going to have plenty of this streusel left over so that I can bake it up, and they can use it as a topping for their yogurts in some of their boxes. So I'm just going to put a heaping teaspoon measurement onto here, and I'm not going to worry about it getting on the sides over here. They don't take very long to bake, so those pieces won't get burned or start smelling bad or anything like that. So I'm just going to heap it right on and not worry about it making a mess. These are going to make it 400 for about 12, maybe 15 minutes top. And I just stick these straight in the toaster. That way I don't have to heat up the big oven, and they're done so fast. So I'm going to stick these in, and I'm going to tiny these up real quick, and then we're going to pull out all the things that we need to assemble our breakfast boxes. First things first, the fruit that we're going to be using this week in our boxes are going to be blueberries, strawberries, and banana. I went ahead and had some other meal prep to do last night, and so I just chopped up the strawberries, and then the blueberries are washed, and the bananas are going to be really simple. Our protein sources this week are going to be our staple Applegate chicken and maple sausage. The kids love this one. I can count on them eating this. And then I know that my kids love this as a protein shake, but I'm not going to prep any protein shakes. I am thinking that I'm going to mix this in with some of their dairy-free yogurt. That's one of the downsides of being dairy-free. I mean, there are many downsides to being dairy-free. But one of the main ones for our family is that all of the substitutes, like plant-based substitutes, just are not as high in protein. So I can give them yogurt, but we're not going to get the same benefit with traditional Greek yogurt. So a lot of times we'll mix collagen in, but I happen to know that the yogurt that I have right now that needs to be used up, my oldest is not a huge fan. So I'm hoping if I mix in some of this chai protein powder that she loves, that it'll give enough flavor to the yogurt that she won't. And then we've got our yogurt, we have peanut butter, and then when we do the yogurt boxes, I'm going to sneak in a few chocolate chips so that they can do like their own little DIY sort of yogurt bar. And then we're also going to do a cereal box. This one is actually one of their favorites. I mean, go figure, because every kid loves cereal. But the way that these boxes are prepped, or the way that these boxes are created, like the tops, the lid kind of have almost like a seal that goes around each individual compartment. So I've tested putting milk directly into the compartment and then putting the cereal on the side so the kids can like scoop the cereal and put it into the milk, which I know sounds really lazy. But one of the main things that I love about these snack boxes, about making these boxes, is the fact that all I have to do in the morning, or all my husband has to do in the morning, is just reach in, grab a box, hand it to the kid, and maybe get a spoon or a fork, and it's ready to go. And this has been such a game changer because we don't have to think about anything anymore. Just pouring the milk into the syrup container. But I tested it and they liked it so much that I'm pretty sure if I didn't do it that way now, they'd be disappointed. So I'm going to keep putting the milk in here, especially my oldest, my 5-year-old. She really liked it that way. Okay, I just tucked on the muffin and they were almost done. So while they're wrapping up, I'm going to go ahead and take the lids off these boxes and get them ready. So we started making these breakfast and even lunch boxes, even though I'm a work from home mom, so I'm at home with my kids. They don't go anywhere. But we started doing this a couple of months ago, and it was such a big game changer for us. Like, we had meal prepped before. We were always a family who enjoyed meal prepping and having things ready to go that we could just pull out and heat up. But then at the beginning of the year, I decided it was time for me to start losing some baby weight. And so my husband and I were meal prepping for people who were on a diet. And while eating chicken and rice for us 5 days a week well, not totally fun. I'm not gonna lie. I much prefer the chicken at Chick-fil-A, but while we can do that, I'm not going to make my kid eat chicken and rice a lot. And even if they would eat it, a lot of times it's just like a battle that I don't want to fight. And so prepping these ahead of time not only saved me a lot of time where I could just pull it out of the fridge and hand it to them, but it also just made breakfasts and lunches so much simpler because I knew that what were in the boxes were things that they were going to eat for the most part. We will still do like this yogurt that my daughter doesn't love. We'll still try to find ways to help them try a new way to eat a food that they don't particularly love so that this doesn't cause them to be like more picky. We still put things in there, especially in lunch boxes. I'll put vegetables in there or things that I know they're not typically a fan of, but then everything else in the box is something that I know they're really going to enjoy. And our only rule is that you have to eat your protein and you have to at least try everything. And I don't care if trying it is like the teeny tiniest little nibble. I don't care. As long as they try it, that's fine. Okay, so the muffins should be done now. I'm going to go and grab those. These look so good. I'm going to set these on the stove and then give you a little close-up. All right, let's go ahead and start putting these boxes together. This next part is going to be really fun. Let's go. Okay, so now we've got all of our breakfast prep for the week. I will admit, in this box with the yogurt and its high protein, I was mixing it up and I was like, this isn't looking so hot. But then I tasted it and it legit tasted like carrot cake, like where the carrot cake meets the cream cheese frosting. That's what it tasted like. So it's good. We're going to stick with it. So we've got our yogurt with strawberries, blueberries, chocolate chips, and cereal. So they'll be able to kind of build, kind of like a build your own yogurt bar. They can put whatever they want to in their yogurt, and then they can eat the rest by itself. Usually, the chocolate chips are the first to go. No surprise there. In the next box, we put a couple of muffins, sausage, bananas, and peanut butter. In this box, y'all, I'm missing a lid. But are you really a mom if you have all your Tupperware lids? I don't think so. I don't think that's even possible. But I've got blueberry muffins, sausage, mixed berries, and then a little bit of maple syrup. I don't do this all the time, but my 5-year-old likes the sausage okay. She's like okay with the sausage. If I give her honey or maple syrup to dip it in, she loves it. So every now and then I'll put it in the box for her to dip. And then the rest of the days, I'm like, you know what? You're just going to have to eat sausage like the rest of the world. So that's that box. And I'll have to just put some saran a little bit. In this box, we have our cereal box. We've got our 7 Sundays oat protein cereal, peanut butter for a little bit of extra protein. And then we've got our almond milk and our strawberries. The girls like to put fruit a lot of times in their cereal, or they'll just eat it on the side. And then they've got their banana to split. And then our last box has 2 muffins, sausage, berries, and strawberries again. So I did a couple of boxes, or I did one box with 2 apple streusel and another box with 2 blueberry streusel, and then one box with one of each. Kind of curious which one they're going to like best. Last time they were partial to the blueberry over the strawberry. But now that we've got all of this done, Monday through Friday this week, I'm going to be able to reach in the fridge, or my husband will be able to reach in the fridge and just grab out breakfast, hand it to the kids, and they will be ready to go. This is going to help us get off to a really good start in the mornings because no one's having to wonder what's for breakfast. I already know because I planned everything out ahead of time. I already know they're getting enough protein, they're getting enough fiber. They're getting in their fruits, they're getting in their fats, they're getting in all the nutrients that they need for their breakfast. And there's plenty of variety so they're not getting bored during the week. And if your kids are like mine, sometimes my kids will wake up a little bit more particular than others. And so some days they'll be like, no, I don't want such and such, a thing that they would normally eat. On those days, it makes it really nice because as long as they're being polite and respectful about it, all we have to do is just switch out the box and give them something else. And then later on in the week, they can have that box that they skipped. So I'm going to load these fridge and then we're going to be good to go. I want to talk to you about one thing real quick. I do this for lunches too. The next week what I'm going to be starting is trying to make more of capsule type meal prep, where the items that I'm prepping for breakfast go hand in hand with the items that I'm prepping for lunch. This is going to cut down on cost, and it's just going to make my meal prep even easier. So make sure that you subscribe to this channel so that you don't miss those videos. Next week, I am going to do my breakfast and lunch prep at the same time. And the one thing that I'm going to cook next week is I'm going to be making blueberry lemon cornbread muffins, and then using that same cornbread batter to make the kids some baked corn dogs, which I'm really excited about because my kids have never had corn dogs. And not because I'm a health freak, although I would consider myself to be a little bit on the crunchier side, just because of the egg and dairy allergies. My kids have never been able to try them because I've never made them. So I'm really excited to let them try this week. So I'm really excited to try this out next week. If you want the shopping list and the breakdown of what was in each box, then you can grab that through a link down in the description. And then I'll also put the recipe for the mini muffin base and that protein streusel inside the description. And then you'll also find the link to these stacked boxes, which I love. One of the questions that I get asked a lot on Instagram is about the cereal and crackers and things like that that are in these boxes. And it stays very crunchy. I have tested it where I've put it in the fridge on a Sunday night, and then I've tried it on a Friday morning. The crackers are still crunchy, and the cookies, if I put cookies in there, they're still crunchy as well. And so everything has maintained its texture with these little boxes, and they're very cost efficient. I think it was about $15 or $16 for a set of 5. And I've already ordered 10 more boxes so that I have enough to do lunch prep and breakfast prep. But now that I see that I'm already missing a lid, I'm thinking I might need to order an extra set just so I don't run out of lid. But anyway, I'm going to see you guys right back here next week. Make sure to subscribe to this channel. Bye.